with breaking news. Dramatic moments in the sentencing of convicted serial killer Michael Madison. The father of one of the women killed by Madison attacked the serial killer during sentencing this afternoon.
Courtrooms are supposed to be places of order and law, right? But sometimes, things take a turn for the unbelievable. Picture a defendant breaking free and sprinting out of the courtroom, or a judge so fed up they yell louder than the gavel. From wild escapes to heated outbursts, today we're diving into the craziest, most jaw-dropping courtroom moments ever caught on camera. These are real-life dramas that you wouldn't believe if they weren't caught on tape. So, grab your popcorn, because this is going to be a wild ride. Let's start with an adrenaline-pumping moment straight out of an action movie. It all started as a seemingly ordinary day in court. Cody Howard and Tanner Jacobson had found themselves in legal trouble. Cody for a new charge, and Tanner for failing to appear and violating his release conditions. But what happened next turned an average hearing into an unforgettable scene. The two were sitting on the courtroom benches, handcuffed and dressed in standard jail attire, quietly awaiting their turn. That's when the moment of decision struck. He said, "I'm gonna run." And I thought, what am I doing? I've got to go with it now.
I said, what am I doing? What did I just do? I gotta go with it now. There's nothing, I can't stop right here.
Cody later recounted, his voice tinged with regret. What began as a split-second impulse quickly spiraled into chaos. Cody was the first to make his move, bolting from the bench with Tanner following close behind. It was a sight no one, including the judge, had expected. For a moment, the courtroom was frozen in disbelief. Then, instinct kicked in. The judge, realizing the gravity of the situation, sprang into action. It was pure reaction, he later said. "I didn't think. I just knew I had to do something."
It was a normal, I think one was in on the first appearance on a new charge and the other one was in on for failure to appear, so we were setting conditions of release. But
the judge dashed out of the courtroom, adrenaline driving him down the stairwell in pursuit. His goal wasn't necessarily to apprehend the two men. He just wanted to keep them in sight so authorities could act quickly. "I thought, at least I can follow them and figure out where they're headed," he explained. Tanner moved with remarkable speed, making it down 3 flights of stairs and bursting through the courthouse doors. For a moment, it seemed as though he might get away, but just a few blocks into his sprint, reality caught up with him. "I stopped on my own," Tanner admitted. "I thought, what am I even doing right now? This isn't going to work." Cody wasn't as fortunate. Still in the stairwell, he felt the judge closing in. He caught up to me, gave me a little shove to slow me down, and grabbed me. We fell through the door and that was it, Cody recalled. The judge's determination paid off as he managed to subdue Cody until additional help arrived. "It wasn't planned," the judge reflected. "I just reacted." In the aftermath, both men had time to reflect on their ill-fated escape. For Cody, the regret was palpable. "I didn't run to escape. I ran because I wanted to get well," he explained, hinting at his struggles with addiction. But it was a terrible decision. Running only made everything worse. For the judge, the incident became a defining moment. It was a rare situation where justice required him not to act from the bench, but from his own 2 feet. The case wasn't just about heroics, it was about accountability. The story serves as a reminder of how quickly impulsive decisions can lead to disaster. For Cody and Tanner, their desperate attempt at freedom only deepened their troubles. And for the judge, it was an extraordinary day when the courtroom extended far beyond its walls. This wasn't just a courtroom drama, it was a lesson in consequences. Courtrooms are typically places of order and decorum, but every now and then, raw emotions boil over, shattering the calm. One such moment unfolded during the sentencing hearing of convicted murderer Michael Madison in 2014. The trial had already been deeply emotional, as Madison was found guilty of killing 3 young women and hiding their bodies in garbage bags. The pain in the courtroom that day was palpable, especially for the victims' families, but no one expected what happened next. Van Terry, the father of Sherelda Terry, one of Madison's victims, had been called to the stand to deliver his victim impact statement. Sherelda was just 18 years old, a bright, promising young woman whose life was stolen in the most horrific way. Terry stood in front of the courtroom, his voice trembling as he spoke about the devastation Madison had brought to his family. He talked about his daughter's laughter, her dreams, and the gaping hole her loss had left in their lives. But then, Terry turned to face Madison, who was sitting at the defense table. What he saw made his blood boil. Madison, the man who had brutally taken his daughter's life, sat there smirking. That smirk was the breaking point. In a flash, Terry launched himself across the courtroom toward Madison. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps filled the air as security officers scrambled to restrain Terry. pulling him away from Madison before he could reach him. The courtroom, once so controlled, had transformed into a scene of raw, unfiltered emotion. People in the gallery wept openly. Others sat frozen, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Madison, still shackled, was quickly ushered out of the courtroom for his safety. Terry's actions were not without consequence. The judge, though sympathetic, had to reprimand him for disturbing the proceedings. Yet many who watched the footage later expressed understanding, even admiration for Terry's outburst. He was a grieving father, pushed to his emotional limits, reacting in a way that many people say they would if they were in his shoes. This moment wasn't just about anger. It was about a father's profound grief and the unbearable weight of losing a child to such senseless violence. The courtroom, which is meant to be a space for justice and closure, had instead become a stage for raw human emotion. Madison was sentenced to death. Darrell Brooks made headlines not only for the horrific crimes he committed, but also for his outrageous behavior in the courtroom.
I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
Turning what should have been a solemn and serious trial into a circus. Brooks was convicted of driving his SUV through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin in 2021, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more. The trial was a harrowing journey for the victims' families and the community, but Brooks seemed determined to make it as chaotic as possible. Acting as his own attorney, Brooks consistently disrupted the courtroom proceedings with outbursts, bizarre arguments, and disrespectful behavior. From the start, he refused to follow the court's rules. He interrupted the judge, argued with witnesses, and frequently launched into nonsensical rants. At one point, he claimed the court had no jurisdiction over him, a tactic commonly used by so-called sovereign citizens. His antics were as frustrating as they were baffling. One of the most unforgettable moments occurred when Brooks removed his shirt in court. The judge had already warned him several times to control his behavior, but he ignored her and made a spectacle of himself, claiming he was being mistreated. He later hid behind a stack of boxes he'd arranged to shield himself from the courtroom cameras, further demonstrating his unwillingness to participate in the trial respectfully. Brooks also repeatedly clashed with Judge Jennifer Doro, who maintained an extraordinary level of composure throughout the trial. She often had to excuse the jury so she could address Brooks's disruptions without biasing their perspective. At one point, he was removed from the courtroom entirely and allowed to participate via video link from another room due to his refusal to behave appropriately. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of the trial was the impact on the victims' families. Many of them delivered emotional impact statements, describing the pain of losing loved ones and the trauma caused by Brooks's actions. Instead of showing remorse, Brooks often smirked, rolled his eyes, or offered nonsensical responses. His lack of empathy was chilling. Despite his attempts to derail the trial, justice prevailed. Brooks was convicted on all counts, including 6 charges of first-degree intentional homicide, and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from you. This community can only be safe if you are behind bars for the rest of your life.
Judge Doro emphasized the magnitude of his crimes during the sentencing, calling his actions a direct attack on the community. Bass Webb's courtroom antics rank among the most disturbing and outrageous ever witnessed, turning serious legal proceedings into a chilling spectacle.
There's no way I'm going to try this case or have any further proceedings where I have to see you for one further step. Except for the very here next week.
Webb, a convicted murderer and former white supremacist gang member, was on trial in Kentucky for the brutal murders of 2 women in separate incidents. His violent history and lack of remorse were amplified by his shocking behavior in court, which left victims' families and legal professionals horrified. From the start, Webb made it clear he had no respect for the justice system or the lives he had taken. At one hearing in 2009, he stunned the courtroom by spitting directly at the judge. As she addressed him, Webb leaned forward and launched his saliva in her direction, an act of defiance that shocked everyone present. Security officers immediately restrained him, but the damage was done. The incident underscored his utter disdain for authority and the legal process. What made Webb even more unnerving was a chilling tattoo he displayed on his shaved head during court appearances. The tattoo read 666 and reportedly symbolized the number of people he claimed he wanted to kill. This macabre statement horrified onlookers and added a sinister layer to his already terrifying persona. Combined with his smirks, taunts, and complete lack of remorse, the tattoo became a haunting symbol of his violent mindset. Webb's erratic behavior wasn't limited to spitting at the judge. During court proceedings, he frequently interrupted the trial, hurled obscenities at prosecutors, and even taunted the families of his victims. Rather than showing remorse, he seemed to revel in the pain and chaos he caused. His demeanor made it clear he had no intention of taking responsibility for his heinous crimes. One of the most infamous incidents associated with Webb came when prosecutors presented evidence of him attempting to run over 2 jail employees with his car. The footage was played during the trial and revealed the extent of his willingness to harm others. It painted a vivid picture of a man with no regard for human life, someone who posed a constant danger to everyone around him. During a sentencing hearing, Webb once again seized the opportunity to lash out. Instead of expressing regret, he delivered a rambling, hostile rant that left the courtroom in disbelief. His lack of remorse and continued aggression served as a painful reminder of the violence he had inflicted on his victims and their loved ones. In the end, the judge sentenced Webb to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never again have the opportunity to harm anyone. For the victims' families, the victims brought some measure of justice, though it can never erase the pain Webb caused. Bass Webb's trial remains infamous not just for the heinous crimes he committed, but for the terrifying spectacle he created in court. From his defiant spitting to the chilling tattoo on his head, his behavior served as a grim reminder of the emotional toll such cases take on all involved. Courtrooms are meant to be spaces of order and justice, but as these cases show, they can also become stages for some of the most shocking and emotional moments imaginable. From raw grief to defiant chaos, these real-life instances reveal the intense humanity and inhumanity that unfolds in the pursuit of justice. What do you think about these wild courtroom moments? Do they show the power of emotion in the legal system, or do they highlight the need for stricter control? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories from around the world. Justice may prevail, but the journey there is rarely without drama.